So, our second speaker helped establish the Association of Mortgage Intermediaries in 2012. He lobbies government and regulators and brings a wealth of experience, having held a number of frontline sales roles. Please welcome to the stage Mr. Robert Sinclair.
For those of you who heard me speak here 2 years ago, I had a bit of a rant. I swore a bit. I challenged you to think differently. I'm sad that here we are 2 years later, that I think not much has changed. I'm sad because in this room, there are people who are so passionate about this industry. People who genuinely want to see change. People who individually, genuinely really think and care. The travesty I see, and I see it everywhere I go in most organizations, is that individually, people are great. Collectively, we fail. And I say we fail, not you fail. We somehow don't get the energy and commitment that we all have to genuinely get to the end point we actually all believe in. And maybe it's because of this. We all worry about perfection. We worry about trying to get to the right result in the right way too much. Nobody accepts that 80-20 is good enough. We worry about a regulator that will judge us for not being perfect. And we have to be a bit braver, perhaps. And that's the challenge I'm laying down. Because our customers know what they want. They don't know what they need. We think we know what we want, but do we genuinely think about it in terms of what we need? Because I think they are two different things. Because I want the chocolate biscuits, but I need to eat the salad. My doctor tells me that. I need to accept across the world that I need to have vast arrays of solar panels which have to live in a symbiotic way with nature. And that's really on my doorstep at the moment, because people are talking about putting a solar farm next door to the village I live in, which will run for miles. And all the NIMBYs in my village are up in arms about how bad this will be. I am the only one standing there going, just get on with it. Because actually there is no choice. And that's about not thinking continually about perfection, but thinking about the world we live in to make it better for everybody. And this people in this room, you're all creative, effective, innovative, and communicate really well. But are we small teams or big teams? Because actually, this is one big team. If we don't get this right, we're screwed. It's really important. And when we did Protection Viewpoint this year, we started with a vision of what we wanted to try to measure. And Kevin and I debate this stuff periodically and worry about what we might uncover sometimes. And we have to sometimes be brave enough to go where we want to go. But in doing that viewpoint, we ended up with a phrase that I quite like, which is about making protection personal, which is quite important, and we'll come back to that in a minute. But what it told us was that what we think is important isn't important to the customer. If you look at that chart, data's about how many claims insurers pay to all consumers, 14%. We've spent the last 7, 8, 9, 10 years flunking on about claim stats. They don't give a monkeys. They actually want to know much more about the product which was sold a long time ago, but they can't quite remember why or what it was. And it's really interesting, because if you are actually buying a product and you don't consume it quickly, why would you remember why you've got it and what it'll do for you? That instant gratification that we all work on is very different to the actual reality of critical illness policy that goes in a drawer, you never read it again, and you probably don't even know when you actually get ill, and don't even think about pulling it out the drawer. Because you've forgotten it exists, despite the fact that every month on your bank statement you see some money going out. Because it's just another direct debit. Alongside Sky, And we have to think about that in terms of, do we want to really tell the customer why it exists? Because under consumer duty, if they don't understand what it is and why they've got it, we have singularly failed. Singularly failed. Now that was in the research as well. We pulled it because it would be hostage to fortune with the regulator in the current climate because of the market study. The other one was, we all worry about price. And actually, price is not the problem. Value is the problem. Green and Blacks didn't start by being cheap. It's a quality brand. You actually can price yourself and differentiate yourself to actually make more profit by being different. But you have to be brave. And we as an industry are terrible for devaluing every bit of quality we deliver. Because everybody drives it through price and price comparison websites. The only stuff you really get to is when we begin to talk about quality comparison. And if you're genuinely going to get to a better place that is a better future, and you all know, the margins in this industry are wafer thin now. We can't survive like this. We need to start thinking about this differently. And you can't actually collaborate or communicate about putting prices up because you are in trouble with the CMA and the FCA if you do that. But we can't carry on where we are, in my view. We've got to think about this in a very, very different way. And that's why at the end of this one, we stopped banging on about the industry needing to do something differently by way of all the things I've been talking about. And get to an action plan that's much more about being emotional about all of this. Because all of this is about emotion. It's not about the numbers. It's not about all the stuff that goes around the edges and being technical. Good salespeople aren't, well, they have a degree of technical competence. It's the 80-20 rule. As long as they've got enough technical competence, they have to emotionally sell it. If you don't emotionally sell it, you are not in a good place. I once was out observing one of my sales force when I was in the Northwest. Really good investment advisor. But he'd lost his dad 6 months before, and he'd really struggled with it. He really struggled with losing his dad. And he went out to observe him selling, or trying to sell an investment proposition to the guy who was a director of marketing, a major firm. And we walked out of the event, the presentation he'd done. He said to me, "How was that, Robert?" I went, "Well, if I was grading you on a kind of ice dancing score, technical merit, 6. Emotional content, fuck all." He looked at me, horror-struck. You had somebody who's a marketing person who's all about feel, and you gave him data. You gave him no idea about why it works and how it works and how it make a difference to them. And that's what this is about, is how do you genuinely get across how you make a difference? Because being perfect on the technical will never actually do what we need to here. And we can hide behind 128 pages of contract documentation. Jesus, why do we do this to ourselves? It doesn't matter. I recently went to talk to my IFA, my investment advisor, my advisor, about reaching retirement and taking money out of my pension fund. Now, I actually turned up and told him exactly how much I wanted a month and how I thought we should structure that. He then said, "Yeah, that all looks fine, absolutely fine, Robert. I just need to pop that into our system and make sure it comes out okay." The doorbell went a week later, and the postman is labouring under a 92-page report telling me what I'd already asked for and knew. Because compliance says they've got to run these numbers and put in a report and send it to me. I'm not reading 92 pages of that bullshit. It is stupidity. Stupidity. But their arse is covered. But it's not, actually. If it's wrong, it's wrong. If it doesn't work for me, it doesn't work for me. The paperwork will make no difference now. And this is where we're getting to now with our regulator, who are beginning to look at a whole host of stuff. And the market study will be interesting if they get to it. And I say if they get to it because we are now have a cavalcade of stuff that says, coming from government. So we've got one set of MPs and Lords this week saying They are not fit for purpose, incompetent, perhaps even corrupt. Now that's a big thing for politicians and lords to say about a regulator. We also have the Chancellor in a range of speeches telling the PRA and the SCA to back off, take away red tape, be less bureaucratic, and let people compete better. And the regulator's answer to that? We're going to consult you about what you'd like us to take away. They haven't even got the ability to make that judgment themselves. 5,000 of them, and they have to ask us how they should do their job. Rubbish. Because in our world, it's okay to be imperfect, in my view. It's a journey, not a destination. We'll never be perfect. I'm perfect, but my other half says I'm not. I get cut to the quick by that. However, we're in this journey, and we're about to embark on a whole lot of stuff around this, which is quite frightening in my view, because there's something on the horizon, and it's a set of legal cases called Hopcraft, Johnson and Wrench. These are the 3 cases that were lost on motor finance and can run a coach and horses through commission of every part of the financial services sector if the Supreme Court does not overturn these 3 cases which fit in the motor sector. Most people are worrying about a market study when I think they should be looking the other way. And on the reason I come talking about what I said on this stage 2 years ago, I challenged down to the insurers that went, I think you bribe people to buy your product. You don't pay commission for the right reasons. There's now a legal case that basically says I was right. Because they took Wood versus Commercial first, which was a commercial banking case, and now applied it to consumer credit and said it applies there as well. And the FCA is now under notice that they should have done a lot more when Wood versus Commercial first was given down by the courts, because we live and you live in a world of the law, not in a world of regulation on its own. Insurance has got more legal stuff around it than that have got reg around it. And I find that fascinating about where we are. But it's fine to be imperfect. How do you make that work, though, in a world where the law might have your arse and the regulator doesn't care whether you're successful or not? Because that is the bit where they think they're wrong. They think the industry, politicians think the SCA has got it wrong because they've stopped thinking about the outcome of what they do. They challenge us to get the outcome right, but their outcome is not where it needs to be. And you have the most difficult job. And Kevin's already referred to it. How do we choreograph these 5 key players? There are 5 key stakeholders. One, the mortgage advisor who writes probably the most protection, or proper protection in the industry at the moment. The customer, who's totally confused and doesn't understand any of this shit. The insurer, the reinsurer, and the GP. Choreographing them is impossible at the moment. So we need to find a different way of doing this. We need to find a way of taking the GP out the equation somehow. Because they're never going to get there. It's not going to happen. Even AI will only get us there in 10 years' time. And we are going to have to worry about this one. Enhanced premiums. I'm looking at Tom, he'll smile. We need to think about this in a different way, about how we reward it, how we work together collaboratively, and stop hiding behind defences. As I'm about to pass on to Steph, train station, platforms, lots of different platforms which he'll talk about. Technology that doesn't integrate, technology that doesn't work well together. Technology in the world of mortgage sourcing that we now think is wrong. And gives us the wrong answers. How do you make sure that when you put all that information in and get the stuff out the far end, it's right? Because you're relying on technology to give you an answer that you're actually accountable for. And nobody's checking whether this is right or not. Apart from my pipeline, which of course is perfect. So I worry about all of this. And it is a mystery, but we need to start with the customer. We need to build simpler products. Plain English, interact better. Good now or perfection never. Good is good enough in my view. But we have to be more honest and share. We have to give people access to the world we live in, because we're either on a road together or it's just a moon on a stick. And with that thought, I will leave you. Thank you.